Greetings. Welcome to Speak Nerd and Enter.
Well done, Mark. Well done. And welcome again to Speak Nerd and Enter. I'm Sean over there. The one who said not it is Mark. Mark, say hi. There you go.
Hey.
And in the middle is Rich. Rich, hey. The K-Man is out today. He's off leading, I believe it's his band Static X on its tour of Northern Europe. He'll be back as soon as he can.
I was going to go with he got laid off by Doge, but okay.
Well, it's topical. That is topical.
Yeah, right.
We'll have to save that one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
His probationary period wasn't up, so
That's right.
they axed him. That's right. So, guys, speaking of Doge, I saw an article and I sent it to you. A story about now. This is the reason I sent it to you was not because it had anything to do with Elon Musk. Actually, this is something that. Do you remember Mike Gordon, Mark? Do you remember him?
Name sounds familiar. I need context.
Helped us out with our comic book proposal and all of that stuff back in the day.
Yeah, it was doing the early comic book art back in the day, or computer art back in the day.
Right.
He was a computer nerd too, right? Yes, I remember.
Right. Yeah, worked for the Navy and all that stuff.
Yep.
Anyway, I remember we were talking about technology one time, and it was out at that out on the porch. I remember we were sitting out there, and I was talking to him, and we were talking about robotics and stuff. And I said something about the best. Oh, what was it? It was the best future I could think of, or the best outcome I could think of for automation and that sort of thing. We were talking about that. Was that eventually we would get, if eventually we got robots that would be able to do just about everything, could do anything for us, right? We'd be able to just take out the trash, be able to build homes, be able to do all these things. Whatever you wanted to have done, it could do it. You want a boat, it can build you a boat, right? You want a house, they can build you a house. They can do all these things. And how would that affect contractors here? And how would that affect society? You know, what would be the outcome of that? And my hope with it was, well, if you have someone or something that can make all these things for you, labor is no longer an issue. Wouldn't that get rid of the need for money? What would be the need for it? What would be the need for any sort of monetary system? Because there would be nothing to barter, really. If you want something, you have this ready-made force of, robots that can simply do it. What would be the point of it? What would be the point of money? Now, they postulated a number of different things in this story that I saw, and it reminded me of that conversation I had with Mike Gordon so long ago. And I was thinking, I'd like to get your input on it with the benefit of wisdom and age and all of this. What do you think would be, if you had something like that, if you had an automated robotic force that was independent enough and thoughtful enough to be able to learn all these things that they want to do actually come true? Mm-hmm. It becomes a series of 3PO style robots that are able to actually go out there and do things. What would be the effect, do you think, on society? What would actually happen with that?
You want me to go first?
Okay. Well, the first thing I think when we talk about not needing money, that's a thing that Star Trek hit on pretty early. They're like, oh, we have replicators, right? You can walk up and just get food or items, and it could just make it at a molecular level, which is your robots on steroids, right? That's nanobots or whatever. But if, right now, information is free. Remember, we used to have to pay more for long distance calls before a certain time, and we had rollover minutes on the cell phones, and it was all very, metered information. That has pretty much gone away, and we have unlimited information now, basically. So I'm kind of likening that from information to physical goods, right? And there's a natural limit to physical goods because, a let's call 50% of any given thing is probably labor, right?
At the very least.
Some is more skilled, some is less skilled at the very least, but call it half is somebody made this thing. And the Industrial Revolution taught us how to make things at scale, right? And factories have kind of automated this thing, and we've had robots, but they do one thing. What we're looking at now is a robot that is essentially able to do whatever we want it to do, right? And that's why Tesla's looking at the human size and scale and 2 arms and 2 legs and can walk. And the thought process behind that is all of our current factories are made for people. All of our current workplaces are made for people. So if we're going to introduce robots, they need to be able to walk up and down the stairs. They need to be able to open the door. They need to be able to use the tools that already exist that are made for human hands, et cetera, et cetera. So that's some thought process behind, I think, why we're looking at C-3PO robots versus R2-D2 type robots.
Right.
Though I think that the form factor will change. Some people might want their own R2-D2. I don't know. But what does that look like as far as money and the cost of things? I don't think money goes away. I think money is the most effective way to determine a medium of exchange, right? It's not my 2 chickens for your goat. It's much easier to have money as a medium of exchange. So I don't think money as a concept goes away or as society works, but I think the cost of goods doesn't go to zero, but it goes way down. Or put another way, I think the productivity of a given economy goes way up, right? You know what I mean? So, what I'm having trouble wrapping my head around is what does that do to society, right? And it's not like we're going to have 1 billion robots tomorrow. You know what I mean? So there's going to be this transition period, because right now some of the big car manufacturers will probably go in for the robots, or some of the people that have long, dumb, dangerous, monotonous jobs are the first on the chopping block, right? Because we need someone who can stand in there and do something. Like you want these bolts all tightened to the specific thing, because otherwise this train's going to come flying apart when we put it on the tracks or something like that. So I don't know exactly what that looks like, but starting at a macro level and then trying to go down to this micro level. At a macro level, I'm not for trying to put the brakes on this stuff because we're worried about it's going to cause disruption and some people are going to lose their jobs. Okay, yes. Just like the Industrial Revolution put a lot of farmers out of a job, right? So we now feed more people with less farmers because of the innovations that we've had there. The Industrial Revolution has raised the poverty level across the world to much higher levels than it was ever previously. The Information Revolution, right, with the advent of the internet, has done lots of good things for society. I get all these arguments that have their downsides as well. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying that there won't be challenges, but now we're at a point where like we can make a robot and send it to do something dangerous, or it to do something that, there's this thought of other like coal miners, right? They go down to the coal mine, they're mining this coal, they get black lung, they get sick, there's cave-ins, there's all kinds of dangerous things associated with, say, coal mining. Well, great. Could we hire some robots to go in and do that? Are they going to be better at it than a regular dude? Probably, because they can work until it's time to plug in, right? And you run an extension cord down there, and now you're increasing the productivity of your coal mine. Is that going to put some coal miners out of work? 100%. Yes. But maybe that's a good thing in the long run, that the coal miners can now become artists and musicians and the creative things that I don't think these robots are going to do. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but I'm trying to catch all those high points. And another thing that I heard about 3D printing, right, that I want to tie in here, right? So with 3D printing, which is building up layer after layer after layer until you have a physical thing, right? Complexity is free. right? So you can make that item as complex as you want because the only thing that's involved in it is this gantry going back and forth and laying down individual layers, right? So if you just want to build, this piece that has like two corners and it's very utilitarian, you could do that. Or if you want to go whole ham and really make something intricate and whatever, that doesn't add to the cost of the item in a meaningful way. Whereas if you're building it by hand, it does. So I also feel like adding a large robotic workforce will allow us to do some things that we wouldn't do now because of the cost of humans doing it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Rich,
What do you got?
And then we'll debate the points there.
He looked like he was chomping at the bit.
You're very much
Rich, you with us?
Yes, I'm right here. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay,
go ahead.
Yeah, okay.
Now there was a big silent thing. I didn't know if you were gathering your thoughts or frozen up.
No, I'm not frozen. The reason I was smiling is because I thought about how this conversation would go before we had it, and I said, "Yeah, that's pretty much what I thought you were going to say." I was right on my estimations. What? So I watched the video that you sent.
What? One of my friends has an idea of what my opinion might be.
Yeah, I know. But it wasn't your opinion. It was just the way that you couched the argument that that I found interesting. I watched the video, which
Cogent, intelligent, well thought out. I get it. Yeah.
Always, yes, always. I watched it through the end.
Mm-hmm.
This is an idea.
No, you're silent now. No, you went silent. Start over at the beginning. No, for real. I'm not messing with you.
I believe it. I know. I saw it. I saw the meter drop. So I watched the video. I watched it twice because because this is something I've been kind of chewing on since Elon Musk came to prominence.
And mind you, he's not the only one who's trying to do this. I don't mean to couch it that way. It's just that was the video that
he was the top.
brought it up to me again. So
yeah, and it's very public facing, etc. I get
it. But it's less to do with him and more of the whole idea because it's a concept that I've been kind of wrestling with back and forth and wondering whether my opinion on it is valid or not. So what exactly are you asking me to because there's a lot of sides, as Mark was seeing. He's trying to hit all the high points, said he was all over the place. What exactly are you at?
If the projected productivity and accomplishment of their program comes to fruition, how do you picture that affecting society? Not just to the extent that they talk to in the video, but projected out into the future. How do you think that will affect society?
So as was stated in the video, there's two outcomes from the idea of replacing a labor force with a mechanical, non-human force, a utopia and a dystopia.
Mm-hmm.
The dystopia leans more towards the whole Matrix, iRobot side of things. The utopia leads more towards the Star Wars and the droid. Because if you think about the movie Star Wars, droids are integrated into society as helpers, which do all sorts of things to assist human endeavor. Whereas in the Matrix, the robots, which eventually became whatever those things were called, ended up becoming dominant and replacements for humanity. You saw a similar thing in the movie WALL-E, where humans just became big fat blobs and did nothing. I saw the sound, so I'm giving it a second.
No, you're good.
Okay, they did nothing, and basically became giant blobs of flesh. I think, based upon my human nature over half a century at this point, I think it's a terrible idea to replace the labor force with robots. I do not like what was laid out in the video. I do not like what Elon Musk is thinking about, and the reason why is that when you take human beings and allow them to not have to struggle for their existence, it has been observed over time that societies tend to fall towards decadence and squalor. Because truthfully, those people that you're replacing, some of them can't do than be a labor force. They're not capable of it. The average IQ of 50% of the population is below 100. Those people are not going to become artists and mathematicians and whatever at, if given the opportunity to. The opportunity isn't the problem. Their capability, their ability is the issue. And to replace all labor, like he was talking about, he was in the video, they were talking about all labor would be eradicated. You wouldn't have to do anything that was a repetitive labor oriented task, because all that would be taken care of by the Optimus humanoid type robots. And the part that they said was an issue is, well, if those things were free to all and everybody had access to them, and then that would be fine. Then you'd head towards that droid utopia. Everyone can afford an Optimus, right?
Mhm.
But the concern was that power and capability of doing things, being able to function as a society and as a race, would be concentrated on people who could afford or who created the robots, and they would hold all power over the rest of everyone else who had no ability. What it actually sparked in my mind was, oh, there's a good market there for robot killers. Being a robot hunter, kind of like the Terminator type, the running around in the wasteland, blowing up Terminators. But as far as it as a concept, do I think it would be a net benefit? I think humanity in general has the discipline and the focus on the whole to be allowed to not have to labor for their existence, their attachment to reality. I think that becomes that's you're opening up a Pandora's box there, which is going to lead to nothing but woe. Because the other part of it that's bothered me about Elon Musk, and
Yeah,
this
sorry, you're
has to do
breaking
with
up.
AI. Okay, I see yours is going up and down. The part that Elon Musk and his AI push, and the AI push in general that's going on right now, is when you have people start to become more and more dependent upon artificial intelligence to do research and solve problems and come up with answers, people will begin to stop having the capability to find those things without it, to find those answers without it. And you see it in art and music and stuff now. All the AI that's used to all the artificial music. I lost Sean. He's gone. Did he blank out on you? Is Sean still there?
Yeah, well, I hear you. Just keep talking.
All the stuff that all the stuff that AI.
Sean, mute.
Mute your mic. There you go. You got it. That fixed it. All the stuff that AI is taking up the slack for with its rise is reducing human capability, that people are now going to get lazy and not be able to do the things that AI is doing for them. And if AI ever goes away, or there's a solar flare or something, you'll have an entire society of people who can't function because they don't have the aid, they don't have the crutch that they were using for many years. People become lazy because it gets too easy for them to go to this thing and say, oh, do this for me. But when that thing's not there, they can't do it for themselves. And it does bring to the idea to me that human made, handmade stuff is going to become very, valuable at some point in the future. Being able to draw by hand, being able to create things by hand, being able to fabricate things by hand, that will become a market which becomes very lucrative for some people because they've retained skills which no longer exist in the average market anymore. So that's my thoughts on it. Does that make sense?
It does. It is my
Hold on,
microphone
hold on, hold on,
Your mic
Sean.
bad.
Your audio is terrible. You need to back out and come back in. Yeah, I actually had him on mute here in the software because he was getting a lot of feedback, and
Yeah, I heard it.
then he started
That's why-
talking, and it was even worse.
Yeah, he's
Yeah, something's going on with his stuff.
He sounded like he.
Yeah,
was
I have comments, but we're gonna wait until Sean comes back in.
Yeah, when he comes back. Try again.
All right, Sean.
Yeah, it makes
There you
sense. It makes sense. Both of yours do. When I was, my hope would have been that with no need for sustenance, no need for things. Like I said, if you want a house, there's a force ready to build it for you. And to your point, Mark, about how 50% being labor, right? Well, in what we're talking about, if you really think about it, 100% would be the labor, because the amount of gold is ripping it out of the earth and, getting hold of it and all of that. Yes, there's the rarity, but I mean, almost 100% is getting it, but if you have that, if you have that part taken care of, I think it takes care of a lot of it. But the question then becomes really an issue, not so much with that, because if you take the labor force that you've created and you take that as a given, now you have, let's say, 20,000 of them that you've made, and they're steady. Half of that number is steady making more, right? And half of those that are made make more. You're going to have an exponential growth in your labor force really fast to be able to take care of ostensibly pretty much whatever you want, right? But so let's say that works out and that part would be taken care of. The true question in my mind is not so much the labor force itself, but humanity and the psychology of humanity. There is nothing that would stop us from having the ideal society now, where everybody's provided for, everybody has something, everybody does their part, all those things. All things are equal and taken care of. But we've never had that. We've never had that. And so adding in that labor force, I don't know if that takes that away at all or mitigates that in any way, because I really do believe that our biggest problem as a species is us, is our own psychology. And what drives one to become something more? What drives one to become something accomplished? What drives one to become powerful? All those things. What's the motivator for it? That's not the part that's really taken away. That's not the part that's taken care of by this other answer here. It's an important answer, don't get me wrong, but the answer has to be able to be understood and used. And I don't know if we're capable of that. You have the biological needs. Men for, untold generations have warred with each other for the rights to be able to biologically procreate. That's just how we are. And as a society, so much of what we do is based around that need to continue ourselves. No matter how smart we've gotten, no matter how accomplished we've gotten, so much of the troubles that we have to do with that. It also has to do with resources and all these other things. But even if those are taken care of, you still have those base needs that we have as human beings, not to mention the psychological quirks, psychopathy or paranoia, or even less profound even less profound
Psychological
traits, psychological traits, even less profound ones still would have a huge effect on human society, you know, from something as simple as a passion or an aversion or, you know, whatever it happens to be. It doesn't have to be psychopathy or, you know, someone being a paranoid schizophrenic. It can be much smaller than that and still have a massive effect on all those around you. I don't see the robotic part taking care of those issues, you know? So even if you took care of the issue of money, let's say money was still gone or was taken care of, like the Star Trek example that you used there, Mark. Let's say that's still gone. I don't think you get rid of the problems that humans would have. There would still be those who want to separate themselves in some way, who would want to dominate.
Right, but I don't think anybody is making that claim.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Having a robotic workforce solves everything.
I'm not. Well, I don't know if they kind of couched that as a possibility in the story, but I don't see that as.
And here's where I don't disagree with what you guys are saying. I feel like if you read the Bible and you go to church or whatever, by the sweat of your brow you show you to make your living. I think that's important. I think humans need to work. We need to be doing things for fulfillment, right? And if I won the lottery tomorrow, I got $100 million after taxes. Like, now I don't have to work. Right. My needs are taken care of. Would I sit around and do nothing? A little bit, yeah. But no, I feel like, you know, I got to fill the hours up doing something, right? And so that's important. Right. But now I can focus on the things I want to do, not the things I have to do to get a paycheck. Like, I go to work every day and I sit in my little cubicle and I do computer stuff. And it pays really, really well. Is that what I want to be doing? Not really. I'd much rather, you know, write a novel or do these other things. Right. Craft the world's greatest cheese. So, you know, understand that the labor is one thing. And at a macro level, if we're talking about resources, right? You talked about the cost of gold is moving a lot of dirt to get to the gold.
Right. Yeah.
Well, now we can move that dirt for free,
right?
In the same way that complexity is free with 3D printing. Great, we'll throw some robots at it, and they can move as much dirt. Or Elon Musk, if we're using him again, fly some robots into space, and we land on an asteroid made of gold. And now we have 100 times more gold than we've ever dug out of the earth. What does that do to the price of gold? Right. And I was looking for this book, and there's a book called Abundance by Peter Diamandis. And I don't think that's the book where the story was, but it's on a similar vein to that book. And it used to be aluminum was one of the rarest elements in the world. Right. It was worth more than gold, and it was so hard to make. And the story, it's more akin to like, oh, I don't own a ladder, so all of the oranges that I can reach are the ones that I can sit on my tippy toes and reach, but there's a whole tree full of oranges. We developed that ladder. Now we can get all the oranges, or we got a machine that comes up and shakes the tree and all the oranges fall off. So it's not the resources aren't there. It's our ability to reach them is a problem. And with robotic workers, now we're freeing up some of those resources that were not economical to go after up until now. And and I actually tuned into the robotic event in October, I think it was, that Elon had, where they had the robotaxis driving around in Hollywood and on the set, and they had the robots out there serving drinks and stuff. And some of the robots were having conversations with customers, and I could tell that wasn't the robot talking. That was some dude back in the office with a headset, like, you know. And I don't know if the robots were teleoperated, but that got me thinking, like, if you can teleoperate robots, now I can work from home in front of my computer and still be working in a factory, or still be working on a farm, or literally be working in space on an asteroid, which is really dangerous work, or be working on the moon to make it habitable. So I think that some of this is far-reaching, and we haven't even figured out what it's going to do to resources. Okay, what if there's an unlimited amount of gold? Well, gold as a store of value goes away. because there's, but gold as a industrial commodity gets really interesting. You know what I mean? Now it's not like, oh, gold coins and we need all this gold at Fort Knox, whatever, as a sort of monetary value. Now it's just, what are we going to use gold for in industry, right? So those, anyway, they were getting off on a whole resource thing.
Well,
But I think it's relevant. And what I am going to say is, on a macro level, robots are going to happen. AI is going to happen. Because if America wakes up to this morning and was like, no, we're done. We've seen too many Terminator movies. Stop. China's going to do it. Korea's going to do it. India, Asia's going to do it. You know what I'm saying? So this is not a, hey, we should not do this. And I think the potential benefits far outweigh. That'd be like shutting down the internet because we're worried about putting librarians out of business. Right?
See,
The
I
internet has
honestly-
created more economic value and raised more people out of poverty. And I see this as like the next industrial revolution. And so fighting against it and being, it's good to be cautious, but not at the expense of advancing society. There's some people out there with a 65 IQ, and the only thing that they can really do is put cans on shelves. And that sucks, right? Are we going to stop progress because of the lowest common denominator? And I think that's a suicidal thought. You know what I mean? Like, because let's say we 10x or 100x our productivity, and we, again, that video talked about a universal basic income. There's thoughts about how to take care of people who need it. And again,
when you talk about
we're getting far afield, but go ahead, Sean.
No, that's actually part of it. And I honestly, when I think about that stuff, I think about someone like Mike, not your brother. I'm talking about, who I'm talking about.
Oh, I was thinking about my brother. No, I know who you're talking about.
But I think about someone like that, and I don't want someone like that, because it's very easy for society to roll over somebody like that and just grind them up, and I think that's wrong. And so I would hope that there's something there for that. But I'll be honest with you, in respect to what I was talking about, what I meant is that I don't honestly see it changing it for one or the other that way. I honestly would see it, because I don't think he would be the only one doing it. I think just like with AI.
Define he. Hold on. Who is he, and the only one doing what?
Talking about Musk. Talking about in respect to the robots and Musk. But I don't.
Right. Yeah. No. There's like 30 manufacturers right now who are working on this.
And I think much like with AI, I think there's going to be some dark horse who comes out, from left field, who does something else and something. There's always going to be something like that. And anytime we've had these revolutions in the past, as you've talked about, it's not really made it an ideal or horrible society. In my estimation, it's always made it faster. So I think our capability to do the same things we've done in the past is pretty much what we're going to do. And we're just going to do it quicker and bigger. And
well, that's because we're humans, and
but that's
we operate at a certain level. Like, I agree.
Right. So I could see, instead of having this one homogenous force of droids going around and helping and that sort of thing, I honestly could see separate factions of droids and more, just the same amount of wars, same amount of things going on.
The Chevy Ford debate.
Right. But in this instance, like you were talking about, difficult jobs and such, how long do you think it would be before the droids are actually part of the, military, and then the bulk of the military, and then, well, what I'm saying.
Okay, let's go there. I think droids in the military is a much better idea than an 18-year-old kid who's out of school and wants to get off the farm in Iowa and joins the military and talking about like fighter planes and stuff like that. A human pilot is almost at a disadvantage to an unmanned drone because of the amount of G-forces and payload and all kinds of things. There's a lot of engineering in those planes to keep the pilot alive.
Yeah.
And again, that's a whole different topic, but if we don't do it, China will. And if we don't do it, some little country like North Carolina or Uruguay or, like they can not spend trillions of dollars on their defense and jump right to autonomous drones, and
Well,
now they're a
think about
player
it. Think about
on
it.
the
Not
world
just
military stage, right?
think about it like this, though. Not even on a national scale. How difficult would it be in this new frontier for an individual or a group to then become the new nation or the new,
Right.
force? That it really does open up when you look at it in
Yeah.
technology that way. It really does open up a lot of different frontiers that I don't think in the macro actually change the dynamic that we've ever had on this planet. I really don't. I think it just changes, like I was saying, the speed at which we're able to do it and the magnitude at
Yeah.
which we're able to do it. So, in my estimation,
Right.
when they're
And
talking about the
that
Tim
technology
Hunter,
cuts both ways.
it does.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't.
I disagree with there being a perfect utopia or dystopia. It's never
Yeah.
going to be that. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I-
It's
I
going to
saw
be
it
something,
more-
some mixed up thing here in the middle. Science fiction likes to take a thing of technology and be like, what if this happened? And they weave this tale around this one thing. And that's usually how science fiction world story is kind of built. But the real world doesn't work that way.
Right.
We have the internet now, but we still have the post office delivering mail and packages.
Yeah.
Right. And the internet didn't kill movie theaters or change our technology in such a way. It'll be slow, fast in the macro scale, but going back to the changes, poor countries, third world countries don't have to spend decades stringing copper wire all over their country like we did, to get telegraphs and telephones. And now they're like right to the cell towers or right to a satellite. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So there's some real advantages to this technological advancement for the poorer countries around the world, that they don't have to take the same path first world nations have taken to get there. And like I said, I don't think we should underestimate that. And that includes robotic workers. If you're not an industrial country and you're still an agrarian country, maybe it speeds up, or they skip the industrial revolution in a manner of speaking. Go ahead, Rich.
I was going to say, so the only issue I have, well, not the only issue, but one of the issues I have with what you're stating is you keep saying that, we'll have these robots and it'll be free. What you're failing to account for, you remember in the
Those words have never left my mouth.
No, you did.
They aren't free. Someone's got to buy them. They're going to cost $20,000 to manufacture at scale.
But you made. Hold on a sec. My audio went out. Okay, I should be back. You made the illusion or the statement that these robots are going to appear. You made it seem like, okay, well, they'll be here, but they have to come from somewhere. But if you remember the Matrix, what was the issue with the robots? What was their primary problem? That when the robots were in place, the robots were created, and they showed up and they started doing all the labor for society, and they ended up replacing society's labor force at one point, and then they became sentient. But we're going to take the sentient part out of it. What was the issue that they had? What was their problem?
Timing, comedic
that we scorched
timing.
the sky. No, we scorched the sky.
Yes, that was a result of what their problem was. But what was their problem? What was the robots' issue that they had? Power.
I don't know. It's my favorite
Power.
movie in the world, and I don't know.
It was power.
Oh, okay. Electricity, power.
They didn't have a way. So these robots they need technology to run them. They need power to run them. You're not accounting for where does this power come from? Well, you can make the argument, well, the robots make their own power source. Okay, so they have self-generating power sources or what. So that's one issue, is that power has to come from somewhere, that infrastructure has to exist. For what you're saying about those non-technological countries that are still agrarian, well, they're going to be snuffed out of existence. They're not going to be able to compete. They'll be just, we're going to break a few eggs. That's why I held up because this is what I was, since I'm a nerd, this is what I was couching.
I don't understand the point that you're making here. Yes, we need electricity. And we've discovered magic rocks that if you put them in the right kind of box, they produce unlimited electricity.
Okay.
Okay. That's called nuclear power. We've also developed these, like there's enough solar radiation hitting the Earth to power everything we could ever want.
So why don't we use it right
So,
now?
like, we as a world know how to make electricity.
No,
The
we don't.
barriers to making electricity are usually political.
No, but we don't. Not on the scale that you're saying. What you're saying is,
I understand that, but if the
nuclear solar power,
advantages
why
to
isn't- why
society
isn't free
are
electricity?
high enough, the rest of that stuff is going to
Okay, but
work itself out. Oh, we want to put 1 billion robots or 100,000 robots, and they need X number of power. Great, and that's the point I'm making. None of this happens in, I've never been like, oh, they're going to show up and they're going to be free, and there's going to be this container ship that offloads 500,000 robots. Okay, yeah, like I understand if we're expanding cities and we're expanding all of these things, infrastructure is gonna have to keep pace.
Now,
Like I understand that. It is interesting to me that Tesla's also in the power business
now,
and the robot business, because I think they understand what the point that you're making.
now, mind
Nikola
you,
Tesla was in the power business. He's not.
to address this part though, I should have clarified. When I'm talking about the fruition of this plan, I was taking into account a power source. I was taking into account as they develop this, we come up with cold fusion or something
Yeah.
that ends up giving us that.
Yeah, we're not going to
So,
airlift
I'm
a robot
I'm
into the
not-
middle of some Kenyan desert without infrastructure.
Because it's
That's
valid.
like here's a vacuum cleaner with nothing to plug it into.
Well, I mean, we've
Yeah,
already
Like that's
valid.
nonsensical.
It's a valid point, Rich. It is.
Yeah.
But just to clarify, I was taking it for granted that
I
was
understand.
part of the development that they had done.
I understand.
So the fruition of the robotic part, if that came true, as they were hoping, what would the effect be on society?
Well,
That's what I
with-
was.
Okay, I understand. But with the addition of that power source, when that power source is created, this is the plot of the movie The Saint. They suppressed, the guy created cold fusion and it was
Mhm.
suppressed. And the reason why it was suppressed is because it was going to provide, free power to the world.
Mhm.
And that was going to change the dynamics of the entire I'm talking the Val Kilmer Saint movie.
Yeah,
Right.
I remember.
Yeah.
But that was going to change the dynamics of the entire planet because no one would ever have to worry about where their heat came from, where their power came from, where their, all their machines would be powered. At that point, though, if that's developed, if that power source is developed, well, why would we need the labor force? Because
Well, you'd still need labor force.
Right.
Ideally-
Power doesn't build a house or a car
Right.
humans build houses.
or mine the
Right,
metal.
but
Well,
not-
now
not-
give it a
But they're
minute.
limited by power. They're limited by
what I'm
access
saying
to
is
power.
if you have the power to be able
Well,
to
humans are too. They have to eat food and sleep, right?
Yeah,
Like
right.
we just get our power in a different way.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to build my house. I'd rather have a couple of robots I could say, hey, I'd love to have a 3-story, and have them build it for me. That's
Yeah,
the
put this
idea.
deck on my house. Go.
Yeah, that kind of thing. That's the idea anyway, is that if you have
Okay.
someone that you're able to do that, how's it going to affect society? Because honestly, who's going to go to Tatooine? Who's going to do that? And then do moisture farming? And what a stupid idea.
Yeah. What?
Why would you
Of
do
all the
that?
things you could choose in an abundant galaxy, I'm going to go live on Tatooine
Well,
and
that was
Right,
the-
right. And
harvest
they
dew.
And
Remember, they were
have
buying
a-
droids. I mean, at the
Well,
beginning of the movie.
I get that. But I mean, what I'm saying is, why would you even have
From the
humans
Jawas.
there?
Talk about Eddie's used car lot.
Why would you
What
even
do you
have
mean?
humans there? Honestly, what I'm saying overall is the Star Wars universe is probably not how that would have played out. It's cool for a playground
the
to
utopian
goof
version.
around with. Mm,
The beginning of iRobot is I think what we're looking for. Not the part where they go evil and
Right.
try to take over the
part where they
world.
want freedom.
But the beginning, literally, when it's like, oh, I left my purse at home, and you send this robot to run back and get it for you.
I got
Oh,
it. Yeah.
or
I
or
do
oh no,
think-
there's a car accident. The robots are trying to save people,
Yeah.
and
And
like
throw
in
my
the
arm
beginning of that movie, that is closer to what I think that we are realistically looking at. Like, forget about the sci-fi tropes and the Terminator, and oh my god, the world's going to end. No, these are just tools, right? It's a smart
Yeah.
vacuum cleaner. It's a smart bandsaw. Whatever you want these things to do, they're
Yeah.
Swiss Army knives, not single purpose. We have plenty of single purpose robots right now. Now here's a robot that is smart enough to I can tell it what I want.
Yeah.
We all have smartphones with apps on it. I could envision an app architecture a storefront for, okay, I own TeslaBot. Yay. Now what do I want it to do? I want it to cook. I could go download the cooking protocols for different types of cuisine, stick it in my robot, and now it can make me Chinese food or French cooking or whatever. Like, I could see all of these types. Oh, you want it to build a deck? Let me download the deck building. You know, now it knows how to use a hammer. Now it knows how to use pneumatic nail guns and things like that. So, like, that's at a micro level. Now I own one. How do I get this thing to do useful stuff? Right? So I own a t-shirt business, and the garment creation industry is very resistant to automation because fabric's really hard to deal with. It's soft, you know, it's hard to run it into a machine. You can cut out the patterns at scale, but right now we have literally somebody sitting in a sewing machine in a sweatshop, probably in Asia, maybe in South America, sewing all of these clothes together that people wear. And that's an issue that could an army of these robots solve the child labor and issue that is plaguing that one industry? Maybe somebody smart in the United States says, I'm going to buy 5, 6, 10, 100 of these things, stick them in a warehouse, and now I'm not having to get my t-shirts made in Honduras because of the cost. You know. So, like I said, there's going to be a lot of disruption at a macro level. Is it good for the world, my country, humanity? I don't know what metric we want to use. You know what I'm saying? But there, you know, it being good for my company is an easy sell. Oh, I got to pay this employee $60,000 a year. They get sick. They don't come in. I can pay $20,000 for this robot, and then all I got to pay is the electric bill. Like, lots of businesses are going to do that math.
They made that argument,
right? And you know, that sounds cruel and it sounds awful, but that's no different than, you know, used to have people doing this, and now we can invest in a machine that does this on the assembly line, whatever this is. You know what I'm saying? So, like, we're already outsourcing people's jobs to automation. This is just kind of the next level of that. And then the real question is, okay, well, now if these robots can do everything, what does that do to the job market? What does that do? How do people earn money? Because I don't think we want to make a bunch of robots, put everyone out of work, and then we end up in idiocracy.
Well,
Brando just laid everybody off.
That's the argument they were making in the video with the universal basic income, that it's the pathway to universal basic income, and why it's a bad idea, because that's what you do end up with. You have all your work related, labor related, and by labor I mean anything that you do to earn currency, to earn value, because right now our entire currency system is based upon trading labor, whatever that labor might be, for value, right? So
physical, intellectual, I get it.
Yeah, physical, intellectual, mechanical, whatever your capability is, that is assigned a value, which is then traded for goods and services via currency. Currency is the vehicle of transaction, right?
Right. And I don't think that's going away. That may change, but I don't think currency goes away because it's so much easier than trading chickens for goats or whatever.
Yes, but what they were talking about in that video was the creation of the universal basic income, where basically everyone receives a stipend. They don't have to work for that stipend. That stipend is provided for them because the labor is no longer part of the equation of currency for value. Or labor for value.
Right, but you started with that universal basic income is a bad thing.
I think
it's a neutral thing. I think it's a neutral thing.
I think it's a terrible
idea. Like, in our current political climate, a universal basic income is terrible because I don't think government is going to cut all of the other forms of social welfare in favor of it. And so, like, a universal basic income, it's like, great, that's just another thing that the government is going to pay for and not do a good job implementing.
I think it's always
so. That's always been, but in a perfect world, right? Then being like, oh, okay, we're gonna give everybody here's enough to take care of your basic needs. Now I sit down and write the great American novel, or get together with my band and put out some amazing music, or decide that I'm gonna create my handcrafted whatever things that people are willing to pay for because I can do because a human made it instead of a machine.
Okay, so
right?
but you
Because
really
I have
believe-
another job doesn't mean my universal basic income goes away.
You really
Now
believe-
it's
Well, I'd say you really believe that the majority of humanity will go off and do this great endeavor if all of their basic needs are met. That they're going to.
I don't care if the majority of humanity goes off and does whatever. If their
Well,
needs are met,
you have to
then
live
their
with
needs are met. Like you can't enforce what's the word I'm looking for? You know,
Productivity?
wanting more. Yeah, productivity, creativity,
Okay.
go-getiveness. You know, like some people are going to perform. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of
We
going
have
on
that
with.
now.
We started with Doge. Hold on, there's a lot of people who are getting laid off. There's this girl I know on Facebook. And she's
Okay.
some kind of, I don't know what she does. She works in a lab. I think she's at NIH or something like that. And she's, you know, lamenting these like, you know, these layoffs. I'm
You cut off.
Yeah, you're frozen.
worried at all if she got like this.
Hold on.
This woman
You cut-
is went
you
to
cut
MIT
out.
or
Back it up. Back it
You
up.
cut
back it
out
up,
for
back it
a
up.
bit.
Cut out for about 5 seconds.
You cut out again.
those kind of people.
Hold on. You're hitting a rough patch there.
Yeah. Stop. Hold
Worried about getting laid off, but if I got laid off tomorrow,
Whoa.
Right?
We lost
Hold up.
everything you just said for about the last 30 seconds. So start
right?
over.
But I don't know where I was, so I'm just going to keep going.
You talked
I'm
about
aware of it.
You talked about a lady.
Right, and
Lady
she went to Johns Hopkins, and she's concerned about, you know, layoffs, right? I don't know what government department they were talking about, but like, am I worried about her finding another job? This is a woman who went to Johns Hopkins, right? She's the top of her field, right? And maybe this opportunity that you're in right now, man, you really want it. Those things go away, right? And if that happens, and you just sit on your ass and be like, well, that sucked. Guess I'll do nothing now. Like, we can't legislate that. Some people are going to choose to do that, and other people are going to be like, well, who needs my skills? Right? And so what I'm definitely saying is we should not stop progress based on the lowest common denominator. And the lowest common denominator in this case, using the universal basic income, is the people are going to be like, oh, sweet, I get $2,000 a month that I don't have to do anything for. I'm going to sit on my butt and play Xbox. Right? Because I can afford rent, I can afford food, I can afford an Xbox, and the games I want, and they don't want to do anything more than that. Okay. I mean,
So
what am
now
I
you're
supposed to do
bringing
about that?
now
You
you're
give me
bringing-
$2,000 a month. That's not enough. I'm more ambitious than a universal basic income.
Okay.
Right? Famous last words. Maybe I won't be, but you see what I'm saying? Like,
But I mean, where does it stop? So we have that now. I mean, people can. You have a zero universal basic income now, but then you make a $2,000 to or whatever the value is. It could be X
Right.
UBI, right?
yeah, I don't know what it is.
UBI, yeah, whatever. X UBI, and now you're in the same place. You haven't gone anywhere. These things are handled, but the people that were going to be productive are still going to be productive, and the people that were going to be lazy pieces of shit who do nothing are still going to be the same way. You've basically done nothing. You've just added a level of complexity to a problem, which is you want everyone.
Oh, I understand that, and I think we're getting bogged down in a hypothetical fix to like this is okay. We're going to introduce a bunch of robot workers, and the cost of producing anything goes down significantly. Okay, so now I can sell my labor for X number of dollars an hour, minimum wage, more, whatever, based on your skills. Well, now the robots can stock the shelves and make the French fries. So now I can't sell my labor for anywhere near what I used to be able to sell my labor for before the robots showed up, right? So how does society deal with that? One option is a universal basic income, right? Okay, we're going to make sure you have enough money to pay for your house and pay for your food and et cetera. I'm not sitting here advocating for that. What I'm saying is there's going to be societal change as we introduce a robotic workforce, as we introduce AI, which can solve problems that are more difficult than what humans have been able to tackle up until this point. Number one, I'm saying I don't want to stop progress on either of those things because I'm worried about some guy losing his job stocking shelves.
That's not the issue,
right? I understand that. We're always going to have the lowest common denominator. We're always going to have disruption. Jobs go away. New jobs are created. That is all of human history. It is going faster now than it has previously. I stick to that. But what I am against is, out of fear, putting the brakes on because we don't have all those answers right now.
Well, I think it's actually beyond that, Mark. I don't think you can put the brakes on. That's the thing.
Part of my point, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's gone, like you were saying. I think it's gone beyond that. The genie's out of the bottle. The argument about whether we should or not is already done. You know, that's done. It's already on its way. And so my question was kind of an inevitability. You know, how do you see the future being? There's also other questions that you have with this sort of thing too. To talk about the basic income thing, I see that as a possible. Maybe that'll work. Maybe it will. Is, you know, I hear a lot of people talk about, well, you know, we have to worry about the lowest common denominator. Yeah, but then you end up losing the highest common denominator and all those in between because you're afraid of being taken for a ride because of the lowest one, right? You have a lot of people who've put in time, effort, and all that. They were so close to hitting the end part there, and now, boom, rug's taken out from under them. Or people like Mike, like I was talking about, who never had the rug there to begin with. Yeah. Something like that would be a life-saving line for them. And like you were saying, Mark, you could apply the same logic of saying, well, yeah, there could be bad with it as well, but I'm not willing to say put the brakes on that because, you know, this bad over here might happen when we can do this good over here to take care of this. We could look back on it and say, yeah, got taken for a bit of a ride on this other stuff, but at least we took care of these people. You know, maybe that's a better way to look at it. I don't know. But you also have other moral issues to look at too. If you're talking about doing this as an AI format, which they are, where these things are able to learn and become more independent and all of that, what are the moral obligations to this kind of thing? You could argue that, you know, at what point does it stop being a labor force? At what point does it become a slave labor force? You know, if you're talking about sentience and becoming artificially intelligent, these are things that I don't know the answers to, or where you hit the goalposts for those various things, you know?
I mean, that's the name of, that's what robot means, is forced labor. Roboto.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
I mean,
and I actually brought this up with somebody the other day. Oh, shoot. Oh, I know what it was. It was in reference to Blade Runner. I was talking about Blade Runner with a few friends of mine up at work, and they're all African American, and they were talking to, when we were talking about that movie, they were talking about getting rid of these rogue robots and all of this. And I said, do you realize the story is not actually about hunting down rogue robots? It's about how this slave labor that had no choice of its own had to live this life of just torturous labor, danger, sexual abuse, all these things. And now when they try to get some sort of freedom, when they actually fight back against their oppressors, they're hunted down like the villains and criminals and murdered. You know, the story is actually about that. And ironically, how easy it is for human beings who otherwise would have been, and I think I brought up an analogy of, like, if I showed you Roots, you'd be empathizing with the slaves. But since I showed you Blade Runner, you very easily fall into the slave master mentality, where these are not actual living things.
Well, it's Harrison Ford, man. Come on.
Yeah. But you know what I mean. So there are a lot of questions that go along with this sort of thing and where it could take society. And I don't know the answers, but I do think, as I said, I do think that it won't change much as far as dynamics. I think it'll just make it quicker. You know, maybe it'll shake out down the road where there's one big victor in, you know, all of that, and maybe not. I don't know. So anyway,
I don't think there's a good scenario ever where one person, company, whatever wins. You know, like monopolies are universally pretty bad. I've never seen a good monopoly that, you know, made things better.
I got one.
Competition is the thing that improves quality and drives down price everywhere. Go ahead, let's hear it.
I got one for you. Our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
There you go. Bam.
Right, but
If I had a mic, I could
he's
drop, I
the
would
clear winner, but without Vishnu as an alternative.
And Quetzalcoatl, it's true. Buddha. Yes.
Quetzalcoatl.
Yeah. Besides, you're right, Mark. Besides the religious side of things and all of that, barring that, just keeping it in the realm of what we're talking about. Yeah, I don't know that there is a good. I've never seen an instance in human history where a monarchy, a monopoly, or any of that has ever ended up having an enduring, great legacy. You'll have maybe a span where you get one good person in there and they do some decent things, but pretty quick, the kids that follow after, or whoever gets in there after that,
Right, and that's true of companies. You know, that are the your great grandfather started this company, and you know, and it's built with this passion. And then when the grandkids come on and take it over, they just want to party and run it into the ground. We've seen that so often, and whatever. But like I say, at a macro level, what improves quality and brings down price is competition. Like, period. Pick an industry, whether it be cars or cell phones or restaurants or whatever. Like, if you're the only restaurant in town, people are going to go out to eat, and you're the only guy in town, so you don't have to worry about your quality. You just got to, have hot brown food. But if there's 10 restaurants in town, you got to step up your A game. Mm. And I think that's, going to obviously be true of robot. Oh, Tesla's got a robot for this much that can do this. Well, Taiwan or China's going to come out with a robot that's, less price, can do more, has extra arms. I don't know. We'll figure that out.
Just so you know, the reason why I was holding up Civil War is this is how I couched how this discussion would go between you and me, Mark, that you're Tony Stark, Iron Man. Oh, we got to break a few eggs to advance humanity. And
I think I'm Captain America for sure.
I think you're the other.
You are Sinestro.
According to Sinestro, awesome.
Sinestro, bring in the
Ethan
DC
Van
universe.
Sciver.
Just totally screw it up.
Ethan Van Sciver, Sinestro, awesome. But no, I mean, I just did it on a nerdy tangent. Yeah, I figured. That's why I was smiling at the beginning, because you were exactly along the line of, this is the line of argument you were going to take, that the advancement is what's important, that we need to push forward. We can't slow down progress because there's going to be some suffering along the way. Whereas in the Civil War, he said, well, it leads to bad ends. And Captain America was saying, well, but what about the people that are already here, and so on and so forth. When they were talking about the Superhero Registration Act, I just found it entertaining. But that was the way I was like, oh, okay, it went exactly how I thought it was going to go.
All right. And for the record, I'm against registering superheroes.
I know.
To be clear,
but
Team Cap all the way.
I'm saying you definitely have a much more positive view of technology than perhaps someone like me does.
Oh, I don't think. Honestly, let me see if I'm right on this, Mark. It's not a matter of having positive or negative view on technology. I think he honestly just believes it's inevitable. And so, trying to stand in the way of it.
Yeah, it's like you said, the genie's out of the bottle. We need to throw a saddle on that genie and ride it. It's not let it go hog wild on society. You know what I'm saying? Like the train is rolling down the track. You want a hand on the wheel. That's a terrible analogy, because you don't have to have a wheel in a train. I realize that now, but
well, you need them actually to ride the rail. But that's just the point. It's not a matter of stopping it. That's not what I'm saying. It's the idea that we need to proceed forward as fast as possible because it's inevitable. Whereas taking it at a pace which we can. It's not drinking from the fire hose, it's drinking from the faucet, right? So taking it at a pace that we could handle, as opposed to, but human greed does not.
Nope, swan dive into the reservoir. Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Human greed does not allow for that, because human greed says, let's go forward as fast as possible to enhance our profits because we got to be first because we want to be top of the market. And that's human greed instead of looking at it on a greater picture and saying, what's best for everyone if we uncork this and move forward at this super fast pace, whereas moving at a more measured pace would be.
Well, I'll tell you.
I'm going to make a controversial.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Sean.
Oh, I was going to.
Well, I was going to say I'm going to make a controversial.
Go ahead, Sean.
Sean first, and then I'm going to go after Sean.
The stupid delay.
Uh,
The biggest epitome of that philosophy that Mark's talking about there, I think, honestly, is China. China's not going to wait for any of that stuff.
No human.
I don't think Russia would. I just don't think Russia's in a position like China is to take advantage of so much of this. But I think China would. They're not going to wait at all. They'll tell you, yeah, sure, we'll talk about all this stuff. We'll do it, and then they're just going to go ahead and do it anyway.
That's why they've been army-anting their population for the last 400 or 500 years. I mean, so
sorry, go ahead.
And again, I'm going to make my controversial statement. I don't think Elon Musk is doing what he's doing, SpaceX, the robots, all this, for profit. I don't think he cares about the profit. I think he's like, we need to get on multiple planets because if another asteroid rolls by and tries to do what happened to the dinosaurs, he wants humanity to survive, right? So I fully believe like that's his mission statement. So he's like, we're gonna have to dig tunnels on Mars. I'm gonna start a tunnel boring company, right? We need, like all of the technology that goes into a Tesla is the same technology that's going to go into the robots. Only instead of 4 wheels, it's going to have 2 legs. No, it's going to use the exact same batteries that the Tesla uses now.
That's not what that wasn't Nikola Tesla's technology. That's the thing that grates me about the fact that he uses the Tesla name is that
the name is for the motors, which was invented by Nikola Tesla, not the batteries.
I understand that, but the idea of Nikola Tesla's primary driving force was to utilize the universal forces which power gravity to provide free power to the world wirelessly. That was the primary focus of his research. This engine part that I understand that, but it's just that it's ironic that they're using lithium diode battery technology.
But again, not anything to do with the point I was just making. If you have a problem with the name Tesla, the of the Elon Musk company, cool. He didn't come up with that. Tesla it was the dudes who were creating the car that he came on and was like, oh, I'm going to help out, right? He wasn't like, hey, I'm going to steal Tesla's name. The dudes who started the car company, who never put a car out until Elon came along and helped them.
I got it.
They started the name. But my point is, I don't think Elon Musk, who is the richest man in the world, who successfully started multiple companies, right? SpaceX and again, he was the lead engineer at SpaceX. Not just like, oh, I'm going to go hire some rocket scientists. No, he was doing the engineering, did the engineering at Tesla. I belonged to X.com before it merged and became PayPal back in the day, right? So here's a guy who's hit with 4 or 5 different things that if his motivation was money, he won. You know what I'm saying? So I don't believe that this is, I want to make all this money so I can go to Mars while Earth implodes.
I'm not necessarily
which is the meme that I see on Facebook and whatnot that him and Jeff Bezos are going to go live on.
In particular,
I know. But what I'm saying, when you have this conversation and you talk about, the what we were just saying, like, oh, some companies are going to do this because profit. I don't believe Tesla is doing it because he wants more money to pile on top of the more money he already has. Now that's not to say profit doesn't come into account, right? If you have shareholders, it's your job and your fiduciary responsibility to make them some money, right? But anyway, that's, some people are going to disagree with that statement, but I don't think Elon Musk is doing what he's doing because he wants a bigger pile of money. I think he believes these robots are going to help society. I believe self-driving cars are going to save lives because we lose 30,000 people a year to car accidents, right? So if you get self-driving, which is a thing that is going to happen, right? Waymo and Tesla are the 2 leaders right now. But I mean, that gives people how many hours a year where they can do whatever instead of having to focus on the task of driving, which is probably the most dangerous thing
Like know how to drive.
that humans in our country do on a daily basis. That's, that's what I'm saying. When the kids get old enough, I'm like, this is the most dangerous thing you do. And yet we are focused on how loud the radio is and taking selfies and stuff like that. So like, that's going to save lives. It's not just about all of these other things. Anyway, I'm belaboring that point, but yay robots, Team Robot.
Well, the horse is out of the gate anyway, so might as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
It's
happening.
Yep.
I mean, we
We'll
already
see how, the reason actually that I'm anxious for it to get to its fruition is because I'm anxious to see how it actually plays out. Curiosity more than anything else.
we'll be long gone before we see that.
Oh, I don't know, man. I don't know about that. I don't know. Maybe, but I don't know.
I don't think it's going to advance that quickly, but we'll see.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Sean was saying, like things are happening so much faster.
I know they said in the video that they were saying by 2027 they want to have fully autonomous, all of Houston to have a fully autonomous taxi fleet. So,
Yeah, they're going to start that later this year, rolling out the limited run. So I bought a Tesla in July, I think. So I've had it for 6 months.
you told us.
Every time every time they upgrade the software for full self-driving, they give me a 30-day free trial. So in 6 months, I've had 3 months of free trial, and I have seen it get significantly better in 6 months. Right, and that's what I'm saying is when you take in the network effect of all of these vehicles on the road, and there's a lot of them, right? And the AI is learning, and it's doing when we get to the point where the cars drive better than people, I think that's going to be a game changer. I don't think we're there yet, right? I consider myself to be a very good driver. I pay attention when I'm behind the wheel. That's my job. I'm piloting the car, not riding in the car. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of people do. And I'm pleasantly surprised by the last iteration. I'm like, oh, because I'll be driving. I'll be like, yeah, I'd change lanes. And then the car will catch up with me a few seconds later and start to change lanes.
You know what I see.
That's anecdotal. I understand that. But when it convinces me, man, that's going to be a real game changer. But I also don't want to have to keep my hands on the wheel and look at it. What we really want is to just, lay back and mess about on our phones or watch a movie on the big screen and be like, take me home from work, and then you can tune out or write your Great American Novel on your laptop while the car is doing the work, right?
So divorce yourself from reality while in reality. And that's the issue I have with it. But, I'm...
no, that's no different if you get in the back of a taxi cab.
I don't.
You're like, take me to the airport. I'm not watching over the taxi guy's shoulder to make sure he takes the right turn. I'm like, take me to the airport. Then I can work on whatever I want to do. I can make a phone call, right? That's what I'm talking about.
Okay. Well, I mean, like I said, man, it's. I see Demolition Man where you've got you in your kimono singing "I Want to Have an Oscar Mayer Wiener," and I'm underground eating rats. So that's where we're gonna end.
All right.
Underground eating rat burgers.
Demolition Man is as good a place as any, I guess.
I guess.
All right. Yeah, I'll be hanging out with Sandra Bullock. I'm fine with that.
Restaurants are Taco Bell.
Prime Sandra Bullock.
All restaurants.
Prime Sandra Bullock. I'm here for it.
She was prime in that film. I will agree.
She was. That and Speed.
Mm-hmm.
All right, boys. Well, thank you very much, and thank you for a very spirited and enlightening conversation.
It was good. It was a good topic. Good job. Yeah.
Thank you, sirs. All right, boys. Until next time, I'll see you. And by that time, perhaps we'll have robots smart enough to tell you at the very end of every conversation.
I'm gonna program my robot to say.
Already buy one.
This concludes our Speak Nerd and Enter broadcast.